Welcome to Liberty High School. Today's going to be more philosophical, and then we'll spend some time on some nuts and bolts, but I do have a couple little nuts and bolts stuff. Miguel tells me from Tech that he finished late last night getting all the printers mapped to the district so that you can go and select them. That's what he tells me. So if that is not functioning, you need to let us know. But I did send you an email, 7:30, 7:15 this morning that gives you directions on how to get printers, and allegedly they all work. Okay? So, all right, second thing, yes. Second thing is Brian and Chris and the staff. We had inventoried Tuesday or Wednesday, but we didn't want to move furniture around prior to the PD day because they had planned on X number of seats for each of those rooms. They've moved desks and tables and chairs, and right now, as of last night, we think we have it covered. But we do need your special eye for your numbers in terms of, we're still short one seat, or we're short a stool, and we tried to accommodate those tall desks with stools until we ran out. And so we feel really good about where we're at, but you'll have to give us some feedback in terms of whether we're still short or not. The one more final thing in that regard, we're still over 110 kids that haven't registered. Now we're up 100 kids from June 1st to now, but we've got 110 that haven't made contact with the mothership. And so Marcy and Sarah and the staff, they're going to start calling people today. And are you intending on coming to Liberty? And if so, we need you here on Tuesday, because today and Monday are kind of big days. And so we have a plan for that, but we don't really know where our numbers are finally going to shake out on that stuff. All right? Marcy, did I cover that all right? Was that accurate? I lost track of her. There she is. That's all right? All right. You have permission to be on your laptops. Some of my slides are small, and I don't claim to be a professional presenter, so my slides are crude and plain, and they're me. So they're just me. Department leaders, if you look around and see somebody in your department might be missing today, Jan is taping this for me, sound and video both, so we can share that. If you think that the information in this particular meeting is worthwhile, we can do that later when we get that all ironed out. All right, any questions from you? Good of the order? All right, Justin, hit it. Justin's gonna be my clicker. All right, I practiced this 3 times. I probably have spent no more energy on any one project than this. I probably started last August. It's really important to me to set the tone today right to, maybe it's my athletic background, my coaching background. It's our first real team meeting. And I think a lot of you know me, but the door is going to be swung wide open today, okay? And you're going to get way more information than maybe you thought you needed, but in my opinion, there's a reason for all the information that you're going to get today. First trial, I got a little emotional. Third trial, not as much. I just be blunt with you, I'm tired. I'm tired physically, but I'm really more tired emotionally. The ride that we've been on, getting it ready, and from the ribbon cutting to the Google Summit to yesterday, I just feel like I've had to be on a lot, and I'm pretty good at being on, but I'm emotionally tired, so I'll keep it together, and I know that's not super professional if I get choked up, but it's me, all right? I keep it together. All right. I am so proud of you guys. I'm just so proud of you. We've all worked so hard, and teachers, today's the first day that you have to be here, right? And we're flooding into this place on August 4th and getting everything ready and making sure that we show well for the district. And I just ooze with pride when people tell me how good things looked and all that stuff. I know that's not a me thing. I know that's a we thing. And so just thank you so much for that. It's not going to be perfect, but it's just got to get off the ground. We just got to start. There's going to be some things like the printers and all that stuff, and just be patient with me and let me know, though, so that I know what I need to work on, but it's just not going to be perfect, and that's all right. I said Saturday, and I believe it from the bottom of my heart, that teachers are one of the most noble professions, and public educators especially, And this is hard work. There's just no doubt about it. It's hard work, but it is critical work. And so thank you so much for being a public educator and then being at Liberty High School. I'm so happy to have you. And so I'll say that more than once in my life, because I really do appreciate that at every turn. So thank you very, very much. You're probably not surprised to know I'm a culture and climate guy. It's not the only thing that matters. It's not the only thing. We certainly want to be a high-achieving school and all that. That really is part of my athletic background. I saw a lot of talented teams in my life that had poor culture. And poor culture will destroy a team. And though you need both. You need a high-achieving team, and you need to have great culture. And so culture starts with me. And so I've really been trying to work hard at it. I've been studying it. I've been going to workshops and what are the right things to build that culture. And we've been using a lot. Jen used it yesterday. I'm intentional about culture. It just doesn't happen by chance with me, or it shouldn't. Assume positive intent with me. You'll see a slide, one of the next slides. It says the no complaining rule. I am not worried about any of you about any of that. It just listed some of the books that I've read recently, and one of them is from my favorite author. It's called The No Complaining Rule. So don't read into it. I'll tell you exactly what I mean, okay? And so just assume positive intent with that. All right, Justin, hit it. I study leadership. And I've studied leadership for a long, long time. And I've really, recently, the stuff that's resonated with me has been the stuff with starting with why. And if you know Simon Sinek, he's big in starting with why, and I'm all about that. And so we're going to see a video here in a little bit to kind of kickstart that. I want to share my educational story with you, but probably more than that, all the things that shaped me in my life. Matt Degner at the Central Administration has been doing this with administrators, sharing your story, and so that we can build more of a culture with our team. I remember one of the first years that I was at West High, and Jerry had some people tell people their educational journey. That was powerful stuff to me, and it was really meaningful. So you're going to hear my story today, and hopefully that will give you some insight on why I behave the way that I behave. So. I'll be genuine today. I used to have student teachers. I was a pretty good teacher, and so they would assign me student teachers, just like many of you. And my student teachers could see the level of engagement in my classroom, and then when I turned it over to them, invariably they tried to be me. And it was always, I was right in the first lesson after they did that. It's like, kiddo, nobody does me better than me. And the thing is, the kids know that. The kids can tell when you're genuine and when you're not genuine. And I said, I don't know if you know what yours is yet, but you have to figure that out. So nobody does me better than me. I'm not trying to be Jerry today. I'm not trying to be Greg. I'm not trying to be anybody else. I'm trying to be the best version of me today. And so if you walk away from here going, boy, that was interesting. You ever seen one like that? Well, I'm not trying to do it like anybody else has done before. Servant leadership is really important to me. Those are the last 3 books that I've read. They're all from the same author, John Gordon. If you are interested in those books, full disclosure, I have a spiritual element to my life that many of you probably are able to see. But these books all have a little spiritual element to that. So just in full disclosure, you know what those books are about there. All right, Justin. All right. My goals for today. I want you to be affirmed, to know that you were chosen for a reason, that it wasn't random. You were selected very, very carefully based on some very specific things that I was looking for. If I'm lucky, I'll inspire you a little bit. Sometimes I can. I will definitely be vulnerable. I've already talked about I'll share events in my life. And then Jim Peterson is a mentor of mine. Some of you know Jim, used to be the HR director here in Iowa City, and he's taken me under his wing this whole year. And I really have had 3 mentors. Jim has been probably the key mentor, and then I use Matt Degner a lot. And then Jen Lindemann at Ankeny Centennial, who opened a new building, has also been a mentor for me as well. So I've just been trying to surround myself with really smart people who've done this stuff before and try to listen. But Jim would tell me all the time, he said, Scott, you're shaped by all the things that have happened in your journey. And it's absolutely true, and you'll hear that today. I found a couple quotes that resonated with me. You can take time to read those. And then maybe more than anything else, I want you to be able to navigate me. So this bottom part, when I was going to some stuff this past fall, it really resonated with me when they said, good leaders are predictable. I want to be in a spot where if you have an issue, you can come to me, but you know how I'm going to react. I want to be predictable. I don't want to be a surprise to you. And I certainly don't want to be a source of stress in your life. So that's part of my goal today. If you see my story, you might understand why I think the way that I think. How am I doing? I haven't cried yet. Start with a why. I got an 8-minute video. It's actually longer, but I'm going to cut it at 8 minutes. So on my screen, Jan, it's not up there. Yeah, Scott's weakness. We have that share screen mode. I've been switching in and out of that. It's not up there though. That's where I want it. Come on, babe. We tested this last night. Yay! Thank you, Keith. Now I can't say that.
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in the pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and the figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't the other body parts controlling your behavior. That's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont.
So I was working with Jim Peterson when we were writing the interview questions, and I had all this stuff in my head, how I was going to get at your why. And in the end, for the first round, I actually shared my core values and then asked you what your core values were. And then as I started going, I heard a lot of people kind of, oh, those are pretty good, I like those, and I didn't get your answers, so I changed that along the way. But I distinctly remember a conversation with Jim as I was driving one day, and he said, Scott, those are amazing questions, especially those last couple, and I'll share another one. He says, but I really hate that last one. You're asking me what my core values are, and it's like, that's what I'm trying to get at. You've been selected because I believe that your core values are similar to my core values. And I think that's a powerful thing, that we all have our whys headed in the right direction. Next one, Justin. Other things to know about me, I am crazy reflective. Nobody's harder on me than anybody else. Poor Marcy. If I get in my car, the number of times I call her when I'm in my car. Why? Because I'm in my car and now I'm thinking about my day and thinking about the things, and she's just like on speed dial in my car. I'm just super, super reflective. And I even think about, well, I'll come back to that because it's on another slide. I can be this smiling, upbeat, positive person, and then you might catch me in the hallway walking down just like laser focused, like I'm on a mission, and yeah, I'm that same person. So it is what I am. I can be super laser focused. Justin, next one. All right, you've seen these. Create Kibby's core values. And I have them written down. This is the first day I was ever asked to do this. It was about 1.5 years ago, and I keep it in my drawer. I keep it everywhere I go. And the ladies that put the stuff on the study hall, that art, they said, we want to put something in your office. Do you have something that could go in your office? And they did this for me on my walls if you walk in my office. So I'll keep this because it means something to me, but I don't need to look at it every single day. So create great experiences for kids. That means a lot to me. And it means a lot to me in my former life as an athletic director and as a coach, because I couldn't control the winds all the time. I just couldn't. And yet I believed in my heart that kids could have a great experience in my programs, no matter whether we won them all or won half of them or whatever. And so what do those great experiences mean? Maybe that's going to the Drake Relays. Maybe it's specific things like that. But more than anything, it's just their experience daily, how they've been treated, how they've connected, the team relationships that they've built, that they can walk away 5 years from now and go, man, I love being on that volleyball team. That was my mission, was to create great experiences for kids. My second core value is treat kids with respect while challenging them to their potential. To me, this is a parent's love. Expect nothing but the best from your kids. I have those conversations all the time with my kiddos. It's like, Nathan, you're not giving me what you got. I know what you got. I didn't have to be mean to him. I didn't have to be disrespectful to him, but I wanted the best out of him. You have permission to challenge every last one of our kids, not out of meanness, but out of love. That's the ultimate gift that you can give those kids. Challenge them, push them. And you know what? When I get those class meetings in here, I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to tell them, your teachers have permission to push you. Not because we hate you, not because we're trying to make your life difficult, because we love you. That's the best thing that we can do for you. And I believe that in my heart. And then the third one, I don't know if it's core value, it's just more me. Do everything with enthusiasm. And I hope you see that in my work, and I usually don't need to be reminded of that. All right, so you can call me on this. If you see me waver from my core values, if you see me, hey, that decision you just made isn't creating a great experience for kids, call me on it. I might not get all the what's right along the way, but I should get the why's right along the way. And so your patience with me as I screw up a what here or there, just measure that decision, though, against my why. And we'll get the what's along the way. I think about our PBIS meeting, and I thought about this yesterday. Brady will tell you, the very first day I was frustrated because our hashtag, or our, what's the word I'm looking for? The city high, the school that leads, whatever that is. The brand. What we were going towards wasn't what I wanted. I don't know why. It just wasn't. So I'm being honest. But I walked away, thought about it that whole night, slept on it, and I woke up in the morning and I kind of got myself back, and it's like, Scott, they're on the right track. It's about the core values. We're headed in the right direction. It's not about the words. They're doing exactly what you want them to do. Give up on this idea that it's these 3 words versus those 4 words, and focus on creating great experiences for kids. Making the school a real positive place for kids to come and go to school. And so sometimes it takes me a while to get back to it, but that's accurate, isn't it, Brady? But I got there. I got there. So call me on it if I stray from that. Next one, Justin. All right, you're going to hear my story, and I'll try to keep it together. That is little Scott. I was born severely pigeon-toed. Not a little pigeon-toed, severely pigeon-toed. And I love sports. And the doctors, my folks tell me that the doctors told my folks that I would never compete in sports because my left leg was turned in so far and my right leg not as far that I would just trip over myself no matter what. And so my folks made the decision to have a very aggressive surgery. And they literally sawed my tibias in half, right at the top. They turned my left foot 30 degrees out. And they turned my right foot 15 degrees out. And that's me, in my cast. And I think I'm an educator because of that event. Because that occurred between my kindergarten and first grade year. And when I came back to school in the fall, I was in Forrest Gump braces. And my teachers loved the blank out of me. They took such good care of me. And I associate going to school at that really young age with teachers' love. And boy, when they loved me like that, I wanted to do nothing more than please them. And I became this little boy that was pleasing my teachers all through my life. Because of that one single event. I was teased. And I know what it's like to be teased. And I'm going to stay away from that word bully. I had those braces on that playground, and I remember that stuff. And I remember my teachers sticking up for me. And I remember thinking, you know what, if I say something stupid, you can call me on that. That's my own fault. But this is the way I was put together. I didn't have any control over that my legs were severely pigeon-toed. And so I have a lot of empathy for kids that come from situations that they have absolutely no control over. Whether it's poverty, whether it's the color of their skin, whether they have a lisp. Thousands of things that kids don't have control over that they get teased for. I've lived that life. I have that empathy for those kids. Next slide, Justin. All right, my casts are off. I got the scars there. Run, Forrest, run. I had those braces. You know the upside? I was faster than Dickens when I was an athlete. I was a little bit pigeon-toed, and I could run. And that, I think when that was going on, my parents really questioned whether that was a good idea. I'm forever thankful that I went through that experience. and gained a lot from that. And it was able to have an athletic career. I wasn't an all-star, but I did. But I was Forrest Gump. There's my parents. I'm sorry for those of you that met them. If you were wearing a jersey on Saturday, they probably introduced themselves to you. They're so proud. They're just so proud. I have no business being here. Neither of my parents were college educated. Neither of my grandparents were college educated. They're all farm parents. My mother was a seamstress for 40 years, standing at a seamstress table for 40 years. My father had just a ton of jobs. He worked in manufacturing on the west side of Cedar Rapids. In the 70s and 80s, when I grew up, the economy went terrible in manufacturing, and he lost his job numerous times. He was unemployed a lot during my junior high and senior high years. And so the 70s and 80s were really hard. We were blue collar, we were middle class, and then when my dad was unemployed, we were probably lower middle class. I don't come from privilege. I know what it's like to be like a lot of our kiddos. But, like you've talked about before, I was absolutely loved. I was blessed to have all four of my grandparents alive while I was developing, along with my parents. One set of grandparents was married 50 years before my grandfather passed away. My other set of grandparents were married 70 years. They lived into their 90s. I'm incredibly blessed. Grandma Dakey on my mom's side was sure I was going to be a Lutheran minister, just dead sure that it was going to happen. My grandfather on my dad's side gave all the boys, I don't know why he didn't give the girls, but he gave the boys, maybe because the girls' names were going to change, a little plaque a couple years before he passed away, but he was sick. And it read something along the lines of, I can't give you much, but all I have to give you is my name. And it really resonated with me that being a Kibby meant something, and that I had to live up to that for my grandfather and have those ethics and those morals. And so I made it through that part, because I don't always make it through that part. I guess the point of that whole thing is I do realize that other families are more different and difficult than mine, that part of my life has been really golden, and that I've got it better than most kids in that regard. But I have been blessed. Quick side story. Unrelated to all this, but just because I have to share. So as the AD at Cedar Rapids Jefferson, I was sitting up in the stands one night. I really don't like wearing ties. I was in a black turtleneck, black slacks, and I had a gray speckled jacket on. And I got hot. I took my jacket off, so now I'm head to toe black. And we're wrestling against Waterloo East that night in the Jefferson gym. And a father from Waterloo East, happened to be an African-American gentleman, walked down to the table from his seat, and he was pounding on the scores table. My scores sitting there at the clock, they were freaking out like, what is going on? Now, he wasn't upset at the official or anything. He was encouraging his kiddo. He was engaged. And I went down. I knew that we couldn't do this very long, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I just said, sir, I'm an administrator here, and I need you to go back to your seat. And he turned and looked at me, and he says, well, I praise the Lord too. Turned around, went back to his seat. So then I go back to my seat, and my son Nathan was 2 rows away from me. He goes, Dad, he thinks you're a minister. Dad, he thinks you're a minister. Are you going to tell him? I said, Nate, I got it right where I wanted it. So it's as close as I come to being a Lutheran minister. All right, Justin. I was good at school. I pleased my teachers. And like I said, I associated love and care with school. I was then, as I am now, this little busy, energetic little boy. That'd be me. That's not me, but that would be me. Justin? Why a teacher? No teachers in my immediate family, but I started to get this idea that I was going to be a teacher. I remember sitting in the junior high counseling office and looking through college materials, and of course I didn't have any trouble stumbling across that UNI was the teacher's college, right? And I was going. I mean, that's where I was going. I was going to be a UNI teacher. And then the fire was lit, and it was lit by Dorothy Peterson. And I have sent her this note to tell her that she's responsible for a lot of all this. But she was my math teacher in both my junior and my senior year. And I don't know how she knew that I wanted to be a teacher, and maybe it's like all the interactions that you have with kids. You just get to know them, and you find out what they're interested in. But Dorothy was the district curriculum director for math. And she started to miss certain times, and when she missed, she came up to me and she said, "You're going to teach tomorrow. There's got to be a sub in this classroom, but you're going to know that material better than that sub will. I'm going to teach it to you now. You deliver it." And I don't know if I did that 2 times, 3 times, 20 times. I don't know. But I remember that had an impact on me, that Dorothy trusted me enough. She saw something in me enough that I became the teacher as a high school student of other kids. And I was hooked. I was going to be a teacher. And I was. All right, Justin. So I'm off to undergrad. We didn't have a lot of money, but I was good at school. And I had a full tuition scholarship. I got my first AD job as an intramural floor director at UNI, so the floors would compete against other floors, and I was the AD. Couple notes as we go later on that I want to bring back to. This part always ticks Carrie off, Carrie, my wife, because we were dating at the time, and it ticked her off the way I could study. And maybe you studied the same way. Math and science, I could watch TV, I could watch a ball game, music could be blaring, I could do all that stuff, I wouldn't miss a problem. I don't know why, it ticked her off. Reading was hard for me, and so when I had to read stuff, I secluded myself. Off I went. You didn't know where I was going. She would even say that I would leave my backpack there and go, because I just couldn't have any distractions. I was a poor reader when I went into college, about 20 pages an hour. I can read a little better than that now, but still not great. But I never missed class. No, I didn't party on Thursday night and miss my 8 a.m. class on Friday night. I did not. Why? Because for me, if I heard it, and if I took notes on it, I had it. I didn't have to pick up a book. I'm sorry, language arts teachers. I didn't have to. I found my magic bullet. I could go to class, take notes, and I had it. That's important when we come back to how you negotiate me, so that how you can help me help you. First job, Eddyville, Iowa. Governor Branstad in the legislature had a loan reimbursement program if you taught in rural schools in advanced classes. I was searching out rural schools that would allow me to teach advanced classes. I got to do that at Eddyville, Iowa. So I had my tuition paid for on my scholarship side. I had my room and board paid for on a deferred basis because of the governor's program. I'm very fortunate in that regard. I taught it all there. I taught everything from Algebra 1 up to Calc. In fact, I taught pre-Calc and Calc at the same time during the same period. That's what you do in a small school. I taught 7 out of 8 periods and had 6 preps. I drove the bus. I coached everything. We had no technology. Anybody remember those risographs with the purple ink? You crank them, you get purple ink all over your white shirts. It's just a mess. My last part down there is another story. So I was down there. I was there 5 years. It was probably middle of my first year. And I talked to my superintendent, who was a math teacher, and I said, "Tim, this is crazy. I'm a first-year college guy, and I have all the best kids in the school." And Burdell Hensley was the other math teacher in the building. Burdell had junior high math, all that practical math, Algebra A, Algebra B. That was about the top of his. I said, "I got the best kids. Burdell's been here forever. How come Burdell let me do that?" And he said, and just very short, "Scott, you need all kinds." It's really made a difference in the way that I have tried to put together staffs, whether it was coaching staffs or whether it's teaching staffs. I really am trying to get the group to complement each other, that I need all kinds. And Tim would say to me, he says, "Scott, some people want that rigor. They want to be able to, challenge those kids in that AP class. And other people just want to work with kids and help them through their problems. We need all kinds." And it just made a lot of sense to me. 11 more years in the classroom at Cedar Rapids Jefferson, I really learned to teach at Jeff, because at Jeff I got to see what real kids look like. I had only the best kids in Eddyville. So I taught the pre-algebra kids, I taught the general math kids, I taught all the tough kids. At Jeff, it was 50% free and reduced lunch when I was there. And I got good with tough kids. I was the teacher that when they couldn't get through the math class with somebody else down the hallway, they gave them to me, and my class went to 32 and theirs went to 21. I never begrudged that stuff. I was good with those kids. Those kids needed me, but I was that guy. I had a teenager kid that I had to do a DHS report on for abuse. I've lived that part of the life. I definitely remember her sitting in the front row, a little blonde girl. She ended up being a teenage mother. But she said one day in front of class, 7th period pre-algebra, "Mr. Kibby, why do you care so much?" And then you can accuse me of that. You absolutely can. Later got really good at pre-calc. I got a whiteboard, not a chalkboard. That was the technology advancement there. All right, when I left Cedar Rapids, we were at a 50-year low in K-12 enrollment. I don't know what they are now, but things are not in very good shape there. Next one, Justin. My administrative journey, Dr. Dose and Dr. Foley. Dr. Dose, while I was at Eddyville, he was the guy that was telling me about you need all kinds. And Tim said to me one day, maybe it was year 2, he said, "Scott, you're going to be a principal." You're crazy. You're crazy. I want to be a math teacher. It's all I've ever wanted to be. Didn't do it. Next year, Scott, go to grad school. You should be a principal. And I didn't. And finally, after the 3rd year, I finally went to grad school. And 7 years it took me to get through grad school because we had 3 kids during that time, but I finished. And Tim has passed away now, and Tim would be proud that he was right and that he pushed me on that path. He saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And part of my hesitancy in doing the principal thing really had to do with what I saw principals as. I saw them as this authoritarian, this is the way it's going to be, and just rules. It's like, I can't be that person. So I was in a class with Dr. Foley here at the University of Iowa. Dr. Foley has since passed away. And he said something that turned my life around in terms of administration. And he was a professor. He professed. I don't know if we did papers or whatever, but he professed. And he said to the whole group, he said, remember the word administration the word is administer. And the root word of administer is minister. And that word minister in Latin is to serve. And we had a conversation about what it meant to be a servant leader. And I thought that day, I can do that. I just couldn't do leadership the way that I had always seen it. And so hopefully you see that servant element of my life in my leadership, because that's the way I want to lead. That's who I am. I don't want to be I know sometimes the buck has to stop with me and I just have to decide, but I'd rather we decide, and I'd rather we do this collectively and that I serve you. So thanks, Dr. Foley. I got the AD's job at Jefferson, blah, blah, blah. I was 10 years on that. The important part of that is sometimes I get paranoid that people see me as an athletic director because that's what I did at West High. I don't know why, I get paranoid about that. I was way more than an athletic director at Jefferson. And because that was my alma mater, I think I had a little more clout with the staff. And so I led professional development with them. I did PLCs, I did teacher evals, I did all those things that at West I didn't have to do. And a lot of times when they were the tough conversations, I was the one leading them. Our staff was transitioning from an older veteran staff there to newbies coming in. It was really quite a wide range. And we were really struggling with what I would call the sift and sort mentality. We had a lot of people on our staff that were veteran staff that just believed that their job was to sift and sort. They'd been doing that for 20 years, 30 years. My job is to figure out who belongs in college. Everybody else, they can figure out what else to do. Well, that doesn't work anymore. And so we had some of those tough conversations about, we got to get out of that mentality, that there are the phrase I use, there are no throwaway kids. There's no throwaway kids. And I just remember that. I also remember at Jefferson that we tried really hard with an off-with-their-heads mentality. You screw up, we're cutting you loose. Get out of here for a while. You know, it didn't change kids. It didn't make any difference in their lives. And so I'm not saying that there won't be consequences for kids, but you are not going to see me immediately chop their heads off. I'd really rather try loving them first and teaching them, and that's what resonates with me with PBIS, right? Let's try to teach them those behaviors. Let's try to get them going in the right direction, because cutting their heads off isn't doing them a dang bit of good. My kids graduated. I wouldn't have left if it wasn't, if my kids wouldn't have graduated. It absolutely was a professional growth opportunity. Completely selfish move on my part. I wanted to learn from Dr. Argenbright. I had a lot of respect from him from a distance. But more than anything, that third bullet. I like studying leadership. I'm a culture and climate guy. What is it about West High that makes that a high-achieving culture? And I loved my time at West High. And I could still live my core values there. I could create great experiences for kids. I could be enthusiastic. Now I forgot them since I'm on stage what my third one is. Good gracious, Scott, my brain's gone. Off to Liberty. I was involved in the co-curricular space design, and like I said Saturday at the ribbon cutting, when you see those designs come to life, you get invested. They asked me to plan the budget for Liberty activities, all activities, so yes sir, I'll do that. Somebody asked me to do that, I do it. I was not the Liberty principal at the time, but I created the budget. I created the transition plan. The reason that there were 9th grade football players playing for Liberty last year while Wes was playing 9th grade football is because I created that plan and vetted that through the transition team, and that was my plan. So all those things were occurring the way that I thought they should occur. And you could argue whether that was good or bad, but I decided a lot of that stuff. And then many of you have heard this story. I went to Mr. Degner and I asked him, how are you going to fill this place with people? And he said to me, he says, why do you ask? I said, I'm not trying to leverage you. I just need to know so that I can make the decision right. I said, but if you're going to fill that place on seniority, I'm out. I'm just out. Because of all these things I've said, because of the why. I want to get at people's hearts and make sure that your hearts are aligned with my hearts. And if I had to take people that their hearts weren't aligned with mine, at this point in my career, I didn't want to fight that battle. I don't want to change them. I'd rather start from fresh and build it. And he came back to me and says, you get to do it the way that you think that you should be able to do it. So I applied. I was fortunate enough to get the job. I saw it as an opportunity to extend my core values beyond my little niche in athletics. Now I could have an impact on a greater community. In fact, maybe my wife says a lot of kind things to me, but she probably doesn't even know how kind this was to me. When I was a kid, and I was really good at math, right? And I was going to be a math teacher. And my aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff say, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't be a math teacher. You should be an engineer. You should be an actuary. There's a lot of things you could do that you could make a lot of money doing. They'd really say that more to my mom and dad than they would say that to me. So my wife is sitting with my mom and dad Saturday at the ribbon cutting. And she says, and then she tells me later, she said, see, Diane, look at the impact he has. What a kind thing to say about the impact. Because it's not about the money, it's about the impact. And so I kind of feel like I'm living that my reach has been greater and it's been very powerful in my life. All right, I want to talk about some other people. I really appreciate your patience. You're a fabulous audience. The second most important person in my life, that's Joe Kenny. He was my baseball coach. He was my science teacher. He ended up being the head coach who I worked for. And his wife, Mary Jane, and both have passed away. But that was my second family. I would go over there and sit on their deck and drink Pepsi with them. And we just talked baseball, but we talked a lot of life. Next slide. Coach Kenny, that's me up in the top in my yearbook, cut in the middle. Coach Kenny, my basketball versus my baseball experience. I'm a little shorter than I should be because of the surgery. And B, I was born in July, so I matured late. And so I was a little guy, and so I loved basketball, but I wasn't big. And so I was the guy on the end of the bench. And I played all 4 years. All 4 years, because my friends, I wanted to be there for my friends. I was the scout team point guard, and I got a lot of value in running the other team's offense and helping my buddies out. But on game night, I kept stats. I have empathy for those kids that don't get on the court and desperately want it. And I feel bad when there's a 30-point lead and we don't have the sense to get that last kid on the bench because I was. So I lived that life. I was a pretty good baseball player. My size did not affect me in that regard. I want to share a quick story about the tape measure, and it talks about our impact on kids in terms of celebrating. So I hit a home run against Norway the year that they won the state championship. I don't know what pitcher it was, I hit a home run. Next day, we come back to practice, we sit on the grass, and we always did. It's how we rehashed after a ball game. We're all sitting there, and Coach throws down the tape measure, Coach Kibby. He says, fellas, if Kibby can hit a home run, we got to figure out how far that is to that fence. And we all hooted and hollered, and my takeaway from that was, he was celebrating with me. He was celebrating with me. Man, nice job, kiddo. We all got a big kick out of it. And so just remember those special little moments along the way when you get a chance to celebrate with kids, please do. And it can be silly. It can be tape measure, throwing it on the floor. I was his assistant coach. He called me while I was student teaching, and he said, hey, my assistant coach is having some health issues. Will you come back and coach with me? We had already had a relationship, and so I started coaching with him. And that is not 75 Joe in the picture bottom right, but that could be 75 Joe. So 75 Joe was a kid on our team. 75 Joe was my name for him. He didn't know that was my name for him. When we were kids, we played 500. Mike, we played 500. If you hit a ball, you catch it in the air, it's worth 100. It bounces once, you catch it, it's 75. Twice, 50. Ground ball, 25. First person to 500, you're the winner. 75 Joe. Every time I hit him a fungo, he's staggering. Bounce once, picks it up, throws it in. Every single time. He wasn't going to catch it in the air. And I went to Coach weeks later and I said, Coach, Joe's not going to help us. Joe is not going to help us. I hit him every day, it's 75 Joe. And to this day, I will never forget what he said. And I've said this to hundreds of coaches in my life. He always called me Kib. He said, Kib, Joe needs us more than we need him. Think about that in your classroom. Those kids need us more than we need them a lot of times. And 75 Joe. Don't forget about 75 Joe. Next one, Justin. My coaching, some of you, the Westgate teachers, have heard this. Everybody needs to hear it, so I'm sorry if it's a repeat. But my coaching experience at Jefferson with Coach Kenny and my coaching experience with Eddyville were night and day different. So I'm coaching basketball at Eddyville for a first-year basketball coach. And my job as his assistant was to show up every day, get the med kit out of the closet, and tape ankles. Put it back, do it, repeat the next day, rinse and repeat. And it was a very unfulfilling life as an assistant coach. I had no input on practice. I had no input on lineups. I had no input on nothing. And when we lost, I sat there and said to myself, I could help this team if he'd just ask me. I was probably too young to be that forthright. And when we won, I had no satisfaction because I knew I had nothing to do with it. And when I was a baseball coach at Jefferson, Joe had the complete opposite approach. So we had little lineup cards. I remember it again, like it was yesterday. He hands me a lineup card, says, Kim, take it home, fill out the lineup card tomorrow. Kids show up an hour before game time. You show up 2 hours before game time. We're going to talk about your lineup. Wow, that's empowering. That's empowering. I wrote the lineup, what position they were in. I shared it with Coach, and Coach would say, why'd you do this? And we'd go through this. And I had input, and it was my team. And Coach would say sometimes, Kib, we're not going to do that, and here's why. Oh, that's a good idea. We're going to try that in game 2 of the doubleheader. But I was invested now. And so when I said this to the West High staff, it's why I like to lead the way I like to lead. It's why I changed the PBIS team from the first group of core teachers in terms of having meetings and getting together and talking, because I want to develop collaborations amongst all of us and not amongst just 5 of us. That nobody around here should have to carry the med kit. That we all should get to write the lineup card. So that's my little metaphor there. I want to collaborate. Coach Kenny also believed in the ratio of praise was like an Oreo. I think it's probably changed. Maybe the Oreo's got a lot more stacks to it. But he used to say, praise, correct, praise. For every correction, there's 2 praises. I think they say now it's 5 to 7, don't they? So our Oreos would look different, but that's 25 years ago. So why I lead? Every kid matters, especially 75 Joe. I love to collaborate. I try to stick to my core values. I try to let go of those things that aren't big rocks, that don't matter in terms of my core values. I try. Sometimes I stumble, but I try. I'm very self-satisfied. The reward of a thing well done is to have done it. That's a sign that used to be on my wall. And then I want to give you a quote that I'd like you to read that was handed to me from the AD who preceded me when I was at Jefferson. But I choose love. That next slide. Take a moment and read this, please. You had a question in your interview. Hardly anybody ever asked the question in the interview. But the question read something like, kids come to us with various barriers to learning. But what's in our control as educators to overcome those barriers, to have achievement, to make positive growth in those kids? I don't know if anybody asked that question, but I asked that question because that's important to me. You know what? We had some hard conversations, didn't we, Jen? You can't come to Liberty if you don't believe that. And I had people in my interviews say, there's just some kids that got some baggage that I can't deal with. Sorry, I can't come to Liberty. You have to have that as a core value. You have to believe that you can create the rain or the sunshine, and hopefully the sunshine, every single day, and that you have impact. And sometimes it's hard. But you know what? If you don't believe you have impact, you're going to be right. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I can't make a difference in that, kiddo. Congratulations. You just did. Excellent, Justin. All right, I want to get to a little nitty-gritty, but I'll try to move this a little quicker. I went to a conference that called Visible Learnings. And John Hattie was actually there. I don't know if you know John Hattie, but very mathematical, research-based stuff on what's effective in school and scientific, and he tries to isolate variables, and which is really hard to do in a dynamic profession that we have. But he tried. And so I'll give you some baseline numbers. 0 means that no growth, now growth. Nice. No growth occurs. A negative number actually means that students lose academic achievement. Summer vacation, kids lose on average. That's a negative. 0.4 is the expected growth for 1 year over 1 year's time. So if you think about the old ITBS, you were at a reader at 2.2 grade level, and now you're at 3.2. If that happened, that effect size would be 0.4 on his little statistics. Anything above 0.4 is outperforming expectations. And so my point with this slide is, wouldn't we all like to outperform our expectations? We're competitive, aren't we? Show me that next slide. So this one is one of those that's really hard. But it goes back to the slide before. That very top line, Hattie would say, is the number 1 effect size on student achievement. That's 1.82. Teacher expectations of students. Teachers' belief that students can do it. Way down, these are all positives, by the way. They're all greater than 0.4. Teacher self-confidence, student self-confidence. Boy, we have a lot of control over that, too. Student self-confidence, we can make a difference with kids in that regard. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but the top one. I figured somebody, go ahead, Justin. I figured somebody would ask me about What are some of the ones that don't work? So the only reason this slide is in there is that he's got thousands of variables. If you do Hattie research, you can get more information than you ever need. But their dotted line is the point 4. The visible learning piece, that's his language. That's why it's called visible learnings. Visible learning to him is where students kind of self-grade before you grade. You're doing a lot of that stuff when you're doing your own rubrics and stuff like that. That's really powerful stuff in terms of student achievement, getting them to reflect, just like when we reflect. Next one. So he talked about a quote in what he described, his definition of teacher efficacy, a teacher's belief that he or she can cause all students to learn regardless of their prior knowledge and ability. That's in our control. That's why you were asked that question. So I think I already hit this piece. We talked about the various barriers to learning, whether you think you can't, you're right. Hit the next one. If you've got your computer up, will you hit that Google slide? Because I shared with you all the answers I had from your interviews that I collected over a year's time. If you can't find it, it's okay. I might have missed a couple of them, but I was logging them as we went. This has been a work in progress for a year. Go ahead and hit it. Oh, you can't hit it, Justin. I can hit it. Right? Awesome. These are your responses, not mine. Not mine. I'm going to highlight just a few, just to show you the variety of them. Never give up. I talked on Saturday about grit. Yep, we need to have grit with those kiddos. Believe they're capable. Man, whoever said this, you were probably hired that instant. Every day is a new day. I hold no grudges. Amen. Have confidence in kids. Sometimes I have a hard time understanding, but we can always care. Differentiate. Yeah, you think? Talk less and listen more. Find out their individual story needs. This is really important. 99. You don't have to do this all by yourself. Side story. So, my mom has cancer. It's in remission right now. She had surgery in January, and we're very blessed. She had the surgery at the University of Iowa last January. And 99, I think about those doctors at the University of Iowa in a teaching hospital. So there she is. She's had her surgery, and here comes in junior doctor. He didn't perform the surgery, but he's just learning. And here comes then, he does his thing. He's intentionally supposed to be there before the real doctor gets there so that they can have a conversation, right? Real doctor gets there, who does the surgeon. Now they have a conversation. What are we going to do for this particular patient? It's about 15 minutes later. Here comes mentor surgeon into the room. So now we have 3 doctors at 3 different stages in their life over my mom's bed, talking through with my mom and my dad about what they're going to do, how they're going to work through this kind of thing. One person doesn't have to have the solution, right? We got to work together as a team. We got to use Tristan. We got to use Randy for kids that are struggling. We got to use the counselors. Don't feel like you got to solve everything yourself. Please remember that, because sometimes I think we get in our own little niche and it's like, I can't reach this kid. Well, let's all try to figure out how we reach the kid. Somebody maybe he's having success with them. I think that's it. There's more there. If you want to read it, see if Scott found your answers. So you don't need me to tell you this. You know all this stuff. That's where I'm trying to say the answers lie within you, not within me. Justin. All right, a couple other things. Many of you have met Carrie. That's me. I am. So before we do this, if you've looked at my slides in advance, it's fine. But I would do a little experiment, and I would always do this with my students, but at a much greater level. So I found a thing called the psychology of geometry, or geometry psychology. And I would do this in the first 1 or 2 days of school to help kids and initiate a conversation with kids about learning styles. And then tell them my commitment to meet their learning styles wherever they were. So I met somebody who did this to us as a group of educators. It was about 80% right. And I thought, good gracious, what is the chances of that? So the person simply said, are you a square? Psychologically. Are you a square? Are you an equilateral triangle? Yes, I took the opportunity to say what an equilateral triangle was to my kids. Are you a rectangle? Are you a circle? Or are you a squiggly line? Think for a minute. Are you a square, rectangle, triangle, circle, squiggly line? That particular educator made us get up out of our seats, go stand underneath a square sign, whatever, okay? We committed. And then after we had a conversation about those traits, then we were allowed to move because we didn't know what they were at first, but very few people moved. I'm a square. I knew it. I've always known it. I'm Revenge of the Nerds guy. Okay? Carrie, though, she's a circle, and she's been in my life for 30 years. And I told Jan the other day, I said, my edges are much rounder because of Carrie in my life. Okay? So go to the next slide. And so the next slide tells you some characteristics of those things. And so you may say, my God, that worked. Or you may say, it's a bunch of hooey. But my point is, this helps you know some of the things about me. So square, hard worker, likes structure and organized environment, loves data, dependable, tenacious. Well, I hope you see that because I think I do. Likes to do the job themselves. That's what I'm talking about when I'm struggling. I got to go get myself by myself. That's how I do that. Likes things in writing, makes sure that things get done well, likes details, doesn't tolerate sloppy work. Look at my sweetheart. Circle, likes harmony, fun, nurturing, caretaker, loves people. You can see that. Best listener, best communicator. She has, I got the best of both of those things now because of her. So hopefully you can, I would never have been able to do this before I met her. I wouldn't have had the heart to bring out my heart. And so I always did this with kids, and then there's a whole bunch more stuff about learning styles behind this that I would hand kids so that then they'd start talking about, well, I need to see it. I'm a visual learner, or I need to get up and move, and we just have all those conversations. And more than anything, I built rapport with my kids in that day and built care with my kids that day because then they knew that I was going to try to hit them where they're at. And they could provide me some feedback about how they learned best because they hadn't always thought about it in that regard. So it's just, I share it more so you get to know me a little bit, but it was a nice tool when I was teaching. Justin? All right, those are my twinnies. Identical twin daughters, born 80 minutes apart, Erin and Megan. Erin on the left, Megan on the right. Yes, 80 minutes. My poor wife dilated twice. We love to read because I was a poor reader. All we did was read. I was not trying to turn my kids into math teachers. Lesson 1. Erin on the left starts walking at 10 months. And now we go to the year checkup. And Megan's not walking. And so Scott and Carrie are nervous. What is wrong with Megan? Erin's been walking for 10 months, or for 2 months, and Megan's not doing anything. And female doctor, Dr. Schultz, waves her finger at us. Lesson 1. They may look alike, but these two are completely different kids. They'll have different interests. They'll have different personalities. What a lesson as a parent, but also what a lesson as an educator. You might have siblings. They might all be 14 years old. Not a one of them is the same. Especially when identical twins aren't the same. They have different interests. Megan is my grad school girl at Creighton. She's in occupational therapy. She's my heart kiddo. Massive heart, just like her mother. Erin is an English major. She's working for a publishing company in New York City. She loves the big city, and she's got it all figured out. And they're fabulous kids, but completely different kids. Completely different. I had my kids in my school for 6 years. I wouldn't trade those for anything. And this slide is on here because many of you wanted to come to Liberty because your families are here. And then you got to come to Liberty because our core values are the same. Love that stuff. Embrace that stuff. What a wonderful thing for your kids to be in the same place that you are. And so then think about that down the road, you know. Now you're not building it for Mr. Kibby, you're building it for your families, your neighborhood families, your community. It's your community. It's not my school. It's not my school. I love my work. Whew, I love my work. But it's your school. They're your families. They're your kiddos. So that's our legacy. Next one. All right, that's my son Nathan. Nathan was not a good student in junior high. He was bored. He was smart. Board. Nathan is standing next to Coach O'Connor for a really important reason. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but that's not by chance. Nathan got in trouble all the time. God bless him. Got kicked off the bus, got sent to a junior high hearing because he said some things he shouldn't say. And he's super cocky. He's not as cocky as he used to be. He's getting more humble. He gets reminded by his dad to be a little more humble all the time. But he was bored. So Nathan, though, his junior year, had blood in his stool at home one morning. And it took us a while to find out that he had Crohn's disease. And that's an intestinal issue, and inflammation there. And what are the chances that Nathan's head soccer coach, John O'Connor, who he was pictured with next door in that picture, John has Crohn's disease. And so the connection and the bond that John and Nathan built was incredible. And the things that John could provide Nate that Scott and Carrie couldn't because we weren't living that life was incredible. For me to watch the relationship between an educator and a kid, and I see that in just different ways in our life. And maybe you've seen that in your life as 10 years later, a kid comes and grabs on your shirt. Mr. Shutt, do you remember me? You made a difference in my life because of boom, 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 boom. So my point with that slide is, you never know when that's going to happen, but you are somebody, you as John O'Connor is somebody's, you're somebody to somebody's Nathan, to my Nathan. And so it just, I think remember that. Remember that. Next one. I hear all the time, because of who I am, Scott, I know you're busy, but don't apologize for that. I've heard it for 15 years. I think I'm supposed to be busy. I think so. I hope you don't find me playing solitaire on my computer someday. If you do, it'll be the first time. Don't apologize for coming and finding me. Communication strategies, though. If it is dead, pressing, urgent, will you please call me? There's my cell phone. Add my phone. If it's urgent, life or death, call me. If it's needed but not urgent, text me. Are you serious? Yes, text me. So it's there. And it could be, Scott, it's not urgent, but would you see me before my day is over? Can I come down 5th period? That's a good strategy with me. Email if it can wait. I don't know how to say this any differently. I don't like sitting in my office. And I don't like sitting and waiting for email. And I'm a poor reader. It's hard for me. If you send me a 5-paragraph theme, it's hard for me. I'm not being mean. It's on my side. It's hard. Okay? So you know what? If I see it's 5 paragraphs long, I'm being honest with you. I probably will read the first 2 or 3 sentences, see how long it is, and say, screw it, I'm going to go down and visit you. It's just what I'm going to do. So if you were coaching at West High, you'd have seen that from me many times. Coach Rosenthal would say, Scott, you didn't have to come down and see me. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's a coping strategy for me. Okay? All right, off to the next one. If my door is open, you don't have to ask. You don't have to apologize. I'm cool. I'm going to be working. It's all right. But come on in. I want to be a resource for you. I want to be somebody who can listen to you. I always said to my coaches, don't let it build up. How can I fix something if I don't know what's bothering you? Even if it's just a little thing, come share. I might not be able to fix it in the next 30 seconds. It might take me a couple days, but I'd rather know than not know. Please share. I hope that you've seen that in my work. If my door is closed, yeah, I might be expecting a phone call, or I'm working on something maybe Matt has asked me to do, but really, it's the third one. It's hard for me. Whatever I'm doing at that particular moment must be hard for me if I close my door. And I probably should have shared this with Marcy long before, because she's probably wondering, do I stink today or whatever? But we're sharing an office at North Central, and there were many days where I would pick up my stuff and just go next door and close the door. Because it was hard for me. Whatever I was working on was hard. I needed that silence, that seclusion. And if Marcy would move her chair, I would hear it, right? I'm just telling you how I learn and how I get through my day. So I had, everybody's getting ready for the ribbon cutting, and it's the day before my ribbon cutting, and I'm working my tail off. I want that to go really well. And somebody from the physical plant doesn't even knock, just slams in and just is going to have a conversation with me. A, it's not courteous, but B, you're not going to get the best me. You're not going to get my best me, because I'm in a hard spot, right? And now you're going to ask me to shift out of that and give you 100% attention. That's why if you text me and say, will you meet me? My mindset's going to be in the right place to help you, right? So help me help you is my point. I've gotten to the point in my life where I pretty much know who I am. And I'm comfortable in my skin, and so I'm sharing this stuff so that you can navigate me. You're my dream team. There they are, the greatest basketball team ever assembled. Your core values are aligned to mine. We've said that 100 times. You have permission today. If you've never been told you have permission today, you have permission today to be creative, to take risks, to do things you've never done before. Because you're in a new school. I've tried to set up the school to give you collaborative spaces, to give you virtual reality goggles, to have collaborative labs where you can bring kids in and get them to share presentations. I've tried everything I could in my mind as I listened to you about the things that you wanted. Now use them. Take risks. If it blows up, move on. It's okay. Brady, you were doing some podcast stuff. Man, that was awesome. Sharing podcast stuff yesterday with kids. Take risks. The school doesn't have to look like it was built in 1964. It doesn't have to. Use Emily. I've been coached all year long. I've been coached my whole life. Emily O'Donnell will be our instructional design strategist. She's waving at you right now. Use her. Use her. Bounce ideas off of her. Somebody else's lens on your work is good. It's hard to see us when we're in us. That's what I use Jim and Jen for a lot, is tell me what you see when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Let Emily be those extra eyes for you. It's safe. I promise. It's safe here at Liberty to do that kind of stuff. Get coached up. You're all fantastic. But Michael Jordan got coached. He can get coached, we can get coached. If you're going to do something cool and it's 5 minutes from now, text me. Because if I'm not, door closed, in it, I'm going to come because I want to see it. Okay? Text me. I'd be happy to do it. Be excited, enthusiastic, it's contagious. I know you are. Live generously with your time, your love, your care, your thoughtfulness. Live generously. Next one, Jess. Your homework, refine your core values. I want you to write them down. It wasn't fair to make you do that in an interview where you had no preparation, but I still was trying to get at your heart. Now I want you to know. Now I want you to know your why. Like Simon Sinek said, if you know your why, then all your whats take care of themselves. Okay? Write it down. It's your homework. I'm going to call you on it. Might do draft, redraft, okay, your first draft is due November 1st. I found that from Mark Twain. I like that. I never saw that quote before. Most important days in your life, the day you were born and the day you find out your why. All right, go get them. I've had a lot of people that have made a difference in my life, and I'm trying to do the same, make a difference in other people's lives. It made me smile. Jen, this is a phrase that Jen will use a lot about make a difference, and it ends up on our banners, and I wrote that in October. I was hung up on that, whatever that was, and I had it in my own slides, like, dummy. I want this to be a place where you enjoy coming to work. I absolutely do. I give you a high five or a knuckles, celebrating that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here. But more importantly, the last line. And for me, this is true. I want this to be the place that you do the best work of your life for the kids. The best work of your life. Man, when you retire, you look back and go, that was my best. Those 15 years of liberty, I kicked butt. Excellent, Justin. All right, you have an amazing opportunity to be a part of the culture and community for the kids, but it's not just an opportunity, it's a responsibility. Sometimes we have to remember that. I have a final video. I appreciate your patience with me.
It's called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know, the next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what, the key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That girl could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
And you know why? Your what has more impact. Because you're walking in and towards your purpose. Get it until the very end. Well done. Welcome to Liberty High School, Tokyo.